Welcome everybody. This is the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association January meeting. We're very fortunate tonight to have Ethan Weaver and our council member Nithya Raman, up here going to debate. We're going to do a little bit of housekeeping first. So we're going to start the debate in about 10 minutes or so. So I do want to let you know that Jay Weitzler, who's a board member, Jay, raise your hand. If you have a question, please raise your hand and Jay will go ahead and pick it up from you. I cannot guarantee that your question is going to be asked. I can guarantee you that we have a ton of questions here, and Phil Sherman from Fox 11 is our moderator. He's going to be asking the questions. So, all right. So this is a very, very important night tonight, you guys. Does anyone here know what happened 30 years ago today? That's right. We had a huge, huge earthquake. Okay, that was 30 years ago, and Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association was very, very active back then, and we became even more active after the '94 earthquake. We became active because some of the government agencies wanted to come into Sherman Oaks and take over and condemn a lot of the properties that were damaged that the private sector went ahead and actually fixed. Because the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Associations and folks like our board members got involved and took charge, and we actually sued the state of California, the Community Redevelopment Agency, the CRA. So we've got a packed room tonight. The folks on Zoom, we've got about 150, 200 people here tonight. Actually, we have 150 seats, so I'd say we have about 200 people standing in the back. And you guys tonight, thank you. Tonight, I want this to be a good, healthy debate. We're here to hear both candidates. So heckling will not be accepted. We've got some very, very strong sergeant of arms in the back that will ask you to leave if you're heckling. There will not be any questions on a hot mic in the audience. Phil is going to be asking the question. So if you have a question, please write it down. If you don't like the answer, vote, that way. But don't start booing, don't start hissing. Ethan's new at this, so don't hiss him down. So be respectful for both candidates. So tonight I want you guys from Coley's, can you guys come on up here? I do not have my notes. So Candace and Neil. So Coley's has been in a part of Los Angeles they're going to let you know what it is. But who here enjoyed the food tonight? So Sherman Oaks is very, very blessed that we have these guys in our backyard now. Jane and I met these guys about 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I saw a news program on one of the news stations, a morning show, on these guys coming in, and they'll tell you about who they are. I remember them when they were in North Hollywood. I remember when your dad was there. But I was like, when I saw it on the news, I got to go there. So they're in Hazeltine and Burbank. That's right at the border of Sherman Oaks. Jane and I have been there many times since then, and we're so happy that you guys came to this event tonight. So tell us a little bit about you. Tell us.
So we started. Oh, all right. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. So Dad started in 1982, the Merck Park. He came from New York, Jamaica, of course, and noticed that there was no good Jamaican food in LA. So he's one of the OGs that started a long, long time ago. Restaurant has been around for so many years. So many actors, actresses from back in the day used to storm the restaurant in the past. But we're continuing on. This is Dad's daughter, Candace, her husband, Neil. We're happy that you guys enjoyed the food. We cook with love, and we'd love to see all your faces. I've noticed some of you that already come in regularly, but thank you very much for having us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. So Candace is usually, not in the restaurant. She doesn't work that hard. Neil, I'm kidding. These guys both work all the time. When you guys go in, she gave me the stop sign. So when you guys go in there, talk to them because, I'm not super familiar with Jamaican food. And, I basically said, what should I order? And they've got her dad loves the curry. Is that right? The curry? The curry. That's what he eats every single day. Jane and I are hooked on the curry, the chicken curry. It is unbelievable. As a matter of fact, you guys said to Jane that you're going to bring jerk chicken. And she goes, are you going to bring the curry? Right? Okay. So you guys got a taste of both. All right. Speaking of Jane, can you stand up, please? So Jules, stand up, Jules. So Jules has been a board member for a long time, since the '94 earthquake, actually, a little after that. And Jules is slowing down his life, but he's still part of our organization. He's handed the baton of gathering the restaurants to Jane, my wife. So you will start seeing her. If you want to help her get another restaurant, see her. But thank you, Jane. Thank you, Jules. All right. So let's have our board of directors. If you guys can just stand up, I'll introduce you. Jay Weitzler. Where's Tom Glick? Tom Glick's in the back with the hat hiding. John Eisen's in the yellow. Bob Anderson, stand up. Larry Slade. And Maria Kalpin, stand up. Okay. So these guys work their butts off. A couple of them, you don't have reports tonight, do you? Okay. So we don't have, typically we do reports, but we want to get straight to the hot topic. So come next month. Next month's going to be fantastic, as a matter of fact. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but with Chief Moore retiring, the recent announcement, you guys are going to want to be here next month. It's a great speaker and it's a great restaurant. So I'm just going to tease you with that. So the electeds, if you're the elected, we've got a few elected here. If you guys can come up, come on, don't be shy. Come on. Just introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing here, and then we can get into the meat and potatoes right there.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Imber. I'm president of the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council. I'll wait for Tom to walk in front. We are the most local form of government. We are government. Right below, we are one step below City Council. So what we do is we basically represent the constituents and the stakeholders of Sherman Oaks. We hold monthly meetings, second Monday in this room. And we next week have an airport committee meeting that's going to be held here on Wednesday. Los Angeles World Airports is coming, and they're going to tell us about some proposed changes, possibly, to the Van Nuys Airport, which is a hot button issue. For more information, visit us online at shermanoaksnc.org. The NC stands for Neighborhood Council, shermanoaksnc.org. Thank you.
Come on, keep it moving. Ryan, you're using up your time. Come on.
I'm not a runner. Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Ahari. I'm the Van Nuys Sherman Oaks Senior Field Deputy for Councilmember Nithya Raman. I promise, Matt, I'll be very, very quickly. Given that it's the new year, I wanted to let you all know what our office accomplished for this community and the council district in 2023 alone. We fulfilled 571 301 service requests, including bulky item removals, graffiti removal, trash removal, and 344 LA Conservation Corps removals for trash, weed abatement, and the like. We removed 75 news racks in Sherman Oaks that this community has been advocating for decades. And shout out to our honorary Mayor Jules for helping get us that done. And then I wanted to let everybody know we helped fill 900 different pothole repairs, 119,000 square feet of potholes, 35,000 square feet of sidewalks replaced, 13 sidewalk access ramps, 4,163 trees trimmed, 47.31 miles of streets slurried, and finally 29.43 miles of streets resurfaced. So I'll still be here if anyone needs any help, and thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you. All right, next victim. Also, while we're waiting for the next person, I want to acknowledge a couple people in the audience. Joan Pellico, the former chief of staff for a couple of council members. Jimmy Blackman, stand up. Jimmy, stand up. Don't be shy. Jimmy Blackman was Antonio Villaraigosa's main man for years and years and years, and it's been a long time since he's been to a homeowner association meeting, but he cares. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Diane Rana. I'm a field rep for Assemblymember Laura Friedman. Quick update. Thank you. Last week, the legislature was back in session. The Assemblymember does have some new committee assignments. She's currently on the Aging and Long-Term Care Committee, Rules, Utilities and Energy. She's been on Natural Resources and continues to serve on that committee. I mention this because if you have any bill ideas or changes to the law that you would like to see happen, please call our district office and we'd love to talk to you about your idea. We also have an opening for a field rep in our office. Again, if you know anyone who might be interested in working for the California State Assembly, it's a great place to be. Please give our district office a call. And if you know anybody or if you need help with the state agency like DMV, EDD, unemployment, give us a call, 818-558-3043. Happy New Year, Sherman Oaks.
Thank you. Also, while we're waiting for the next, come on up, come on. Marty, Linda, are you guys still in the back? Marty, Linda? Okay, so Marty and Linda, you guys all met at the door. You guys gave Marty and Linda money. They come to every single one of our meetings and they are fantastic and I just want to acknowledge them. And thank you guys. Go.
Hi, my name is Jody Francisco and I am the Sherman Oaks site coordinator for this year's homeless count. And I'd love to invite all of you to please sign up and come either to Sherman Oaks or whatever city is convenient for you. We are desperately in need of volunteers. The Sherman Oaks count is next Tuesday, the 23rd. It will start at 7 p.m. It says 8 on the site, it is 7. I want to get people in and out. Go to theycountwillyou.org and you can sign up for wherever you want to sign up, but we need lots and lots of volunteers. So thank you, man.
Thank you. So Jody's going to be here through the whole debate. She's sticking around afterwards, you guys. So we need, thank you, Jody, for doing that. We need an accurate count, you guys. We need people. You don't have to approach any homeless folks. You don't have to put yourself in any danger. It's really easy to do. It's fun. It doesn't take a lot of time. It's not fun because you really see stuff that's out there, but it's a good thing and we absolutely need it. So she's going to stick around afterwards. Please see her, get her number, give her your number and volunteer. Anyone else? All right. We've got Alex, you come on up. So we've got a couple folks from the police department. Let's hear it up for LAPD, the best division. And the best looking captain of any station. The top cop in Van Nuys, right? Well, in Van Nuys Station. Okay. So Alex has a couple announcements. I'm not going to embarrass Slow, Mariana, or any of the other. I'll let Alex embarrass them.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alex Vargas. I'm the captain from right here. Van Nuys Station, Van Nuys, Sherman Oaks. To introduce myself, I've been to a couple meetings, so I know I've met some of you. See me down the street, walking down one of the restaurants, come by. You know, we're always looking for volunteers over at the Van Nuys Civic Center. Come on by, come meet your officer, come by, take a tour of your Van Nuys station. We'll be happy to have you. We're always looking, like I said, for volunteers. If you have any kind of issues by your home, either quality of life issues or crime, you can always reach out to our SLO's office. SLO Mariana, SLO Jose Saldana will be happy to help you guys out. Saldana is south of Ventura Boulevard for the most part. Mariana is north of Ventura Boulevard. Okay. Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So you guys, the police department is not at the level of officers that we need to be at. Okay. So if you guys have time and you want to be a volunteer, we have 2 volunteers back here right now. You want to raise your hands? You guys, thank you for what you do. By being a volunteer, you don't have to wear goofy uniforms like that, though. I'm kidding. So if you do want to volunteer, though, there's lots of different things you can do to volunteer, okay? There's lots of things. Van Nuys Police Department covers Sherman Oaks, and our crime rates are better than most of the other, right? But they need your help. So if you do have time, if you do want to give something back to the community, call Alex. He'd be happy to go ahead and get you guys going. Okay. Anything else? Did I forget to introduce anyone? Let's get going. Phil Sherman. Phil Sherman has been a friend of mine for 27 years. And he's been a friend of Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association for 26 years. So I don't know about that. Yeah, he lives in Studio City. He's done, this is your 4th or 5th debate. He does a great job with it. He is semi-retired. You used to see him on Fox. You used to see him on NBC Channel 4. And he's semi-retired in the sense that he's not a full-time guy out there. He's enjoying life right now a lot more. So he's just an on assignment guy, which he enjoys a lot. So Phil, come on up and take the mic. And if Nithya and Ethan, you want to sit. So Nithya is wearing a mask because her husband tested positive a couple days ago today. So he's feeling fine, but she's testing negative. So she's going to sit over here. But you can still see her big, huge smile behind it. Oh, there you go. Look, you're going to take it off. Then I'm getting out of here. So, no.
You won't hear it. So this is taking off. You're all take it off.
All right.
Nithya, just slide in just a little bit, so I'm sure you're on. Perfect. Thank you.
I don't see that because of
Yeah, talk close to the mic. Really close. Each have your own.
Okay, thanks for being here. Hopefully everybody can hear in the back. We're going to go for about an hour, 2-minute opening statements. Then we're going to have questions. We're going to try to keep the answers to about a minute. Bob's going to be there with 15 seconds and then stop. We've had questions submitted by everybody. We've condensed them. A lot of them obviously were similar. So we're not going to have questions from the audience. We're not going to name who submitted the question because a lot of them are condensed, again, from similar topics: homelessness, crime and safety, housing, DSA, development. Before we start, I should also mention that the stakes are very high here in March because if someone gets more than 50%, they win. There's no runoff. Unlike, for example, federal offices, we have a Senate candidate debate that Fox 11 happens to be sponsoring on Monday, live at 6 o'clock. Hopefully you can tune in on Channel 11. The top two, regardless of party, advance to the general election in November. So the stakes are very high here for this debate. Does anybody want to go first? Ladies first? Can we use first names? Is that okay? Nithya? 4 years ago, I think it was the first time I met you, actually. No one in this room voted for you, except for maybe a few exceptions. And I know that hurts you because I know that you work hard for the community. So what do you feel that you've done in office to change this group's mind? Well, about one, but we're not going to be super, I know 2 minutes. We're not going to be super strict on the time. Oh,
Sorry.
okay, before we get, now you know the first question. So that can be part of your opening statement. Well, I'm sorry, that was my fault. I meant to mention the opening statement. So we got 2 minutes for opening statement.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Nithya. I'm the current council member for Council District 4, which now stretches from northern Silver Lake to Reseda. I'm an urban planner with degrees from Harvard and MIT by training. I have 2 8-year-old twins, and I started being interested in politics because I was a volunteer on homelessness in my neighborhood and saw that there was just a real urgency for change among me and my fellow neighbors that I didn't see reflected in my local elected official. And so I ran with that message of urgency and hard work and ended up beating an incumbent for the first time in almost 20 years here in the city of Los Angeles. And in the last 3 years that I've been here, I've really worked hard to deliver on what I ran on. In Sherman Oaks, we've done a lot in the community. We've revamped 2 playgrounds at BNSO Park. We've put in street lights along Ventura Boulevard at Lamona and Calhoun and other places. We've really worked hard on service requests, like Ryan said, and Ryan is an incredible field deputy, but I've also done a lot of work for the entire community. We've passed the strongest set of tenant protections in LA history in 40 years. We've made our climate goals easier to achieve by decarbonizing new construction. But the thing I'm the proudest of is that here and across the district, we've housed hundreds of people experiencing homelessness through our work. And this is exactly what I committed to doing. I said homelessness responds to urgency. And right here in Sherman Oaks, we've housed people at the Coldwater 101 underpass, at the Van Nuys 101 and Riverside area, in Studio City near Phil's house, at the Studio City Park and Ride. When I got that area in redistricting, we housed everyone there in 6 weeks along the LA River, over and over in locations And because we house people, didn't just push them into another neighborhood or down the street, those areas have largely stayed clear. And when a new tent shows up, we're able to put our team to work again and get people indoors. And for us, that's the top issue in LA right now. That's what people call us about. And that's what we've really worked hard to deliver on. So thank you all for being here and look forward to this discussion tonight. Thank you, Phil.
All right, thank you. So Ethan, about 2 minutes.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for being here tonight. My name is Ethan Weaver, and I never thought I was going to be running for office. I had one dream in life, and that was to be a prosecutor. I grew up watching Perry Mason every day. I dreamed of serving my community by keeping it safe and putting bad guys in jail. And that's what I did. I went to UCLA Law, I graduated, and I've been a deputy city attorney for the city of Los Angeles ever since. 5 years ago, though, my life radically changed. And that was when I became a neighborhood prosecutor. And that is a prosecutor that works in your local police station with community groups just like this, every single day, solving problems on the ground, making a difference. And I loved that job. And I got to work with neighbors just like you to solve their issues. And I'm so proud that I have the support of leaders of the homeowners associations, the neighborhood councils, the Chamber of Commerce, the small businesses that I served faithfully for 5 years. But then I started in that position, I started to see what we all are seeing, and it's the decline of our city. It is the crime that is increasingly impacting us in our homes and our small businesses. It is the filth on our streets. And as someone who works with almost every city agency, I can tell you the view from the inside is even worse. Our city is failing at so many levels. And as a neighborhood prosecutor, it was my job to implement the policies City Hall passes on the ground. If I'm elected as your next city council member, I will be the only member of city council who's actually had the distinction of having to make the laws City Hall passes work for the community. And it is the mismatch between what is happening in City Hall and what is happening in the community that is the reason I'm running to represent you. So thank you all so much for being here, and I'm so excited for this conversation.
All right, thank you. So you answered my first question in your opening statement, but what do you know now that you didn't know then about the city and how it works and about this district?
So I think the thing that has, I ran because I know that in LA, we have a pretty powerful city council. We have a weak mayor, strong council system. We only have 15 council members for a city of 4 million. And so each individual council member has a lot of power to make change and has a lot of power to do certain kinds of things through their office. And I felt like we weren't paying enough attention to that role and what was possible as a result of it. But I will say the thing that I have learned as I've gone through this, particularly in trying to address issues like homelessness, like affordable housing, is how important it is to work with the mayor and with other council members, and how important it is to work with other jurisdictions like the county that is the primary engine for delivering things like social services and mental health services. Without all of these people doing their part, I think it will be hard to get to the very lofty goals that we have. We can push as hard as we can, but I think we have to be pushing together and in the same direction. So I think building coalitions is incredibly important.
Ethan, you said something interesting. It's that disconnect between what happens at the city council and what happens out here. What is that disconnect? How do you describe it and how do you fix it?
Yeah, I think that is such a good question, because as the councilwoman listed off all of the different groups that she's learned that she needs to work with, there was one group that was noticeably missing, and that was the community. And as I look at what City Hall is doing and what is happening on our streets, it is the disconnect between the politicians in City Hall and what you experience every day in your homes and in your communities. And as a neighborhood prosecutor, I learned early on, the job begins in community rooms just like this. It begins with showing up in the community, listening to people's problems. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes people are not happy. but you have to listen to what people say, and then most importantly, take action and make a change.
All right, so obviously you touched on homelessness. Mayor's Inside Safe program's gotten a lot of publicity. Is homelessness better or worse today than it was than when you started?
So I think in my district, when I drive around, I see that a lot of the big encampments that were there when I first got elected or when I got those areas redistricted into my neighborhood, we've gotten those people housed. And in my very first homeless count, we saw in this district, after 6 years of increases, finally a reduction in street homelessness, which was really, really exciting.
When you say housed, what does that mean exactly? Does it mean in a motel that we pay for 6 months or a year?
It can mean a bunch of different things. It can be in a congregate shelter, like the Bridge Home facility is a big place like this with cubicles or beds. It can be in a motel or hotel program. It can be in a shared facility where people.
So, I mean, are you happy with the way things are going?
No, I mean, I don't think anybody would look at Los Angeles and say,
are you satisfied with the progress with the plan?
I think we have made progress in our district. We've used every tool in our toolbox to be able to address homelessness at the district level. We need to do a lot more at the city level. We need to do a lot more at the district level as well. But I think
what's the one thing you need that you don't have?
We need a lot more shelter beds. We need a lot more shelter beds. Los Angeles has a third of the shelter beds that we need for our entire homeless population. New York has shelter beds for every homeless person. And before the migrant crisis, they had 2,000 unsheltered people out of 80,000 homeless people.
So do you believe?
And here in LA, we have 30,000 unsheltered people because we only have 15,000 shelter beds out of a homeless population of 45,000.
Do you believe that if someone refuses the offer of shelter, that they should be forcibly removed?
Yeah, I think that we have constitutional restrictions on how we can do that, how that works in the state. That's what the Supreme Court is going to be talking about in a few weeks. I talk about what is the context that we're in right now and how I can do the absolute most to deliver on outcomes for residents. So that's my goal.
A no.
No to what?
To that, whether they could be, should be forcible.
No, that's just the reality we live in.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just reality.
So you watched this homeless debate a little bit from the outside. I mean, I know as a neighborhood prosecutor, you're involved in it. What's your take on what the city's doing right now? It seems like the focus is on cleaning up encampments. Do you have any ideas?
Absolutely. So the city of Los Angeles, just our city, not the county, not any of our surrounding cities, is spending $1.3 billion a year on homelessness. And as someone who has worked with the lead agency that spends that money, it's called SOHA, that bureaucracy is designed to fail. It is unaccountable by design. It is not accountable to our city council. It's not accountable to our county supervisors. And if you talk to any of our city council members, they will tell you that they cannot give direct orders to this bureaucracy. And this bureaucracy will look our elected leaders in the eye and withhold information from them.
So are you saying disband LASA?
I believe we need to do a phased withdrawal from LASA and set up a city agency that is accountable and transparent and responsible to you, the voters.
Is that realistic?
Absolutely. The only thing,
we would lose federal funds. A lot of federal.
Well, look, I don't care for spending $1 billion or $5 billion in the current machine. We will never get out of this mess, no matter how much money we spend. If we don't get a system that is actually transparent and accountable, it doesn't matter how much money we spend.
Right, but everybody agrees with that. Well, we still have the system.
Well, that's because we don't have leaders that are actually willing to fight the system. And that's why I'm running to do.
Give me, if you were installed tomorrow,
yeah,
what would be, when you say fight the system, what would be the top thing you would do?
So we need a long game and a short game. In the long term, we need to start standing up a replacement. It's not going to be an overnight thing. We have to design a replacement. We need to build the coalition on city council and do it well. We've learned so much about homelessness in the last 30 years that is nowhere integrated into our current system. That's the long game. In the short game, we need to manage this pet problem better day over day on our streets. The people in this room and everyone in Los Angeles feels tremendous compassion for the people experiencing homelessness on the streets. But when encampments pop up in their neighborhoods and they stay for months at a time, and there are needles and feces on our sidewalks where our kids walk to school, that turns compassion into anger. And if we don't start managing the problem better day over day, we are going to lose what little patience is left from the good people like you.
I mean, we could spend the whole night talking about this issue, but we want to cover some more ground. Let's just get a little bit away from, say, specific policy decisions and talk about like values. Like if I said to you, Nithya, like what are your values as a person and as an elected representative? How would you answer that?
That's a great question. So I think one of the values that I really bring to this is hard work. I bring a work ethic. I'm an immigrant to America. My parents and I moved here when I was 6 years old, and we had to work really hard to make it in this country. And, you know, hard work is definitely one of the values that I bring to this. I'm one of the hardest working people in that building, and we work really hard with our entire staff to serve this district. The second is integrity. I think it's really important to serve constituents with integrity. And that means, to me, not taking any corporate money for my campaigns, which I've never done. I'm the only clean money candidate in this race. I was the only clean money candidate in my last race. And I think it's really important to make sure that we're working for the people and not for people who are trying to profit off of Angelenos.
Why do you feel it's important to mention that you're an immigrant so often and in your biography and in your press materials and so forth?
I think LA is a city of immigrants. And so for me, I think it's part of what makes me love being in this role and being an Angeleno. It is a city that really welcomes outsiders to it. And for me, as someone who grew up, I didn't grow up in LA, I moved to LA as an adult. I think for me, it has been the most welcoming place that I've ever been. And I love that about it. And that's part of why I think it's so important. And I think I'm the only immigrant on the council. So it's nice. Nice fact.
No, I was just curious. In your biographical materials, you are very upfront about your sexuality. And why, a similar question, I mean, why do you feel that's important for people to know about, and how would that affect how you would do your job, if it would?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was born in a fundamentalist evangelical family, I was homeschooled until I was in 8th grade. And when I came out, my family disowned me. And there were periods of my life where I was almost homeless because I didn't have anyone to fall back on. And I think my background is important because many, many times in my life, I have faced obstacles where my whole life was on the line. And I had no choice but to overcome those obstacles. And when I look at Los Angeles, I see a city that has massive obstacles. And we need leadership that has a history of running towards obstacles and not away from them.
But I mean, that sounds good, but do you have like a specific example of an obstacle that we would need to overcome that you could help with?
Yeah, I mean, where do we even start? From homelessness to the decay of our public safety net. Not just police, but firefighters. We are so massively down in both police and fire and first responders across our board. It is terrifying, and the trend lines are going in the wrong direction. And yet no one seems to be out in front saying, not only am I going to change this, but I'm going to own this problem. And I'm running to own this problem. And so when I think about the obstacles facing our city, those are the top of mind issues. And that is why I am running for this seat.
But I mean, what makes you think that 5 years as a neighborhood prosecutor would enable you to do all that?
Well, so I've been a city attorney for almost 10 years, for 9 years. And I have worked with almost every city agency. And as a neighborhood prosecutor, I can't count the number of times I saw a problem and I went to a city agency like building and safety or housing. And I said, hey, we need to tackle this problem. And the bureaucracy looked at me and said, we don't know how to do that. We're not doing it. And it was up to me to find a path forward. And in time after time, I built coalitions of multi-agency task force to shut down problems that no one had ever seen before and no one cared to act on. So I have a track record of doing this in the community, and that's what I want to bring to City Hall.
And can I ask you the same question about how would you describe your values?
Yeah. I think the first thing is that I listen. I listen to my community, whether it's rooms as large as this, or whether it's 5 people in their living room upset about something happening in their neighborhoods. The second thing is I take action on that. That was how I succeeded as a neighborhood prosecutor, and it's why my community is supporting me. They support me because I left their meetings and solved their problems. And then the last piece that I'm very proud of is my ability to solve problems. My only way I could succeed in my job was when I ran into an obstacle, maneuvering around it and finding a way forward. We are told far too often in this city, no, there is no way, there is no solution, there is no answer. And we need leadership that doesn't take no for an answer.
Nithya, one of the controversial issues has been your membership of the Democratic Socialists of America. Been a lot written about their statement calling Israel an apartheid state after the invasion. You came out and denounced that. Can you clarify your membership in the organization, why you were in it, and your position on the Israel-Hamas war?
Thank you for that. You know, I was one of the first in City Hall to condemn the horrific terrorist attacks by Hamas. I have since then spent a lot of my time in community with my Jewish community, attending vigils, meeting with family members of hostages who are visiting Los Angeles. And I hope that I've been able to demonstrate to my Jewish community members at a moment when many of them have expressed feeling abandoned, that their elected representative has not abandoned them. And I've tried to do that in every way possible. And I've made my position on the issue and how I feel about it very, very clear.
Well, if you have, for example, some of the
about the whether I.
Why are you a member of that organization? Have you considered resigning from it or withdrawing from it?
Yeah, you know, I joined because I really like Bernie Sanders when he was running for president. I was excited about the way that he spoke about issues. I think he really cut through. He got people who later voted for Trump to vote for him. And, you know, I just really like that in a politician. I like someone who was really honest. He's been the same since 1970. And I don't know, I really liked him. And I hope that that same spirit that animated Bernie is also what, you know, brings me into this role.
Well, one of their positions is to abolish the police.
I don't, you know,
I don't support that.
No, I mean, no. But
elimination of personal property, banning single-family homes, labeling Israel an apartheid state. I mean, if you feel strongly about it, have you considered?
Yeah, look, you know, I think I've made my differences with the organization fairly clear.
I mean, do you feel you'd be unfairly criticized in that area?
You know, I understand if people feel uncomfortable with that. I will say that, you know, I've been endorsed by a huge range of local organizations, everyone from Democrats for Israel to DSA to 13 Democratic clubs to the LA County Democratic Party. I'm endorsed by over 30 elected officials, including Mayor Karen Bass, Congressman Sherman. And I think it's because I really bring a spirit of coalition building into this. My belief is that if you want the best for Los Angeles and that you're not moving through this moment with hatred for other people, that you can be part of this big coalition, even if we have big disagreements on issues. And I think that's really important for Los Angeles right now. This is a time of deep division. I am not about to use my role here to further divide people. I see my role is to bring people together.
So you've been critical of Councilwoman on this issue. Do you think that's fair, or are you just using it to stir up controversy?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing we need to understand is how deep the relationship goes. The DSA selected my opponents to run the last election. They ran her campaign, and they're heavily.
Sorry, this is a lie.
Okay, well, you can fact check this yourself. But understand that this group believes not just in everything about Israel that was just mentioned. They believe in abolishing the police. They believe in abolishing private property rights. This is a horrific set of policies, and they're having an outsized influence in City Hall. And that is terrible.
And in what way? Because there's 3 council members that are members?
Absolutely, yeah. We have 3 city council. Right, but there was one city council member before last election, now there's 3 and a city controller. We have to understand the stakes that are at play. The DSA has an agenda they are trying to push. And when you look at their social media, they describe their relationship with these electeds as co-government. This isn't a faraway relationship. This isn't just one endorsement on a list of endorsers. This is a closely tied group to these city council members, and you need to understand who has your city council members' ear.
I'd like you to respond to that.
Well, I just really want to say, I think to describe the DSA as selecting me to run does me a disservice. I'm a grown-ass woman. I chose to do this. I decided to run. I picked my campaign team. I ran my campaign last time. I mean, I was not recruited to do this. I felt like I had to because I wanted to make change for my neighborhood. And I think, if I really were this horrifically divisive person that he just described, I'm just not sure why so many elected officials that I trust would support me for re-election. Why would Mayor Bass support me? Why would Congressman Sherman support me? It's because I do my job well, I work hard, I am a sincere person, and I work closely with all of my colleagues to make change. And the change that we're making are things that are widely agreed upon to be good for Los Angeles. That's what we're working on in City Council. And people see me as a part of their coalitions as well.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about the development on Ethel Ave. In condensing a long involved story, the mayor issued an executive order saying, we're going to bypass rules and regulations to build housing, which everybody thought, that sounds good. We need housing related to the homeless issue. Then several projects were proposed, one of which is the one on Ethel Ave near Chandler, 7-story apartment building, right? Affordable housing in an R1 residential zone. Then the mayor, after all this pushback, said, oh, geez, we forgot to exempt residential housing. We're going to change the rules. And the developers who already had their projects in the pipeline said, no, we should be allowed to move ahead. Am I summarizing this correctly?
Yeah, they were already given their approvals under the
and approval, which included your approval. So the question is, why would you approve that project at that location?
Well, so I think the key to me is following planning regulations here in the city of Los Angeles. We keep talking about the housing crisis. We keep saying we need more housing, we need deeply affordable housing. Executive Directive 1 has generated more affordable housing in the city of Los Angeles and in our council district than any recent rule or regulation than we've seen in the last 10 years through Executive Directive 1.
Like, what exactly does it skip over?
So
just
2
or 3 things.
Here's a few of the kinds of things it does. What it does is when you are trying to build a multifamily unit building here in the city of Los Angeles, you often have to go through an approvals process. A lot of our plans are decades out of date. And so you often have to get a variance from the parcel.
Right, so we know it cuts the red tape and so forth.
Right, but this is different because what it does is it says, we're gonna give you your permits for that unit within 60 days. And actually under the ED so far, they've given most of their permits within 45 days. And this kind of predictability, this kind of shortening of the timeline is so attractive to people who are trying to build housing. Los Angeles is a notoriously bad place to build housing because of how long it takes and how much the red tape is, that in our district, projects that had initially submitted as market rate housing resubmitted as 100% affordable. That's how attractive these new regulations were, right? And so through this executive directive, they were able to kind of generate way more units of affordable than they had before.
Is it fair to say that your value of the importance that you're placing on affordable housing outweighs the neighborhood concerns?
Well, I would say that the importance of, I think affordable housing is really important. And I think
in this specific.
And I think, well, in this case, I think what my value is that really that leads me to support this is that we have to follow the planning rules. We have a city right now where council members have tweaked planning regulations for a long time.
But they changed the rules
Well, but these were approved
6 months after
right, but these were approved during the earlier version of the rules, right? But hold on, I just want to say one thing. When your council member is ultimately the deciding factor for every project, which is the system that we have right now, a system that I'm fighting to change, you know what happens all the time? People give council members bags of cash at the table. That's just the system that you incentivize and create.
Yeah, I think one's going to jail.
Yeah, at least. And I don't want that for Los Angeles anymore. We need to create the plans, and then we have to step away and not have council members make those decisions.
Shouldn't each project be evaluated on its merits?
But that's exactly we have to create a plan that says where we're going to build, that we all agree on is a good plan for the city, that the mayor and the council members agree on.
Yeah, which they now agree is not in R1.
Yeah, I mean.
All right. So Ethan, I know you're anxious to talk about this. I mean, my sense is you're going to say this is exactly what you've been talking about a disconnect. Yeah. I mean, would you build this project? And if not, what about the need for affordable housing?
No, we shouldn't build this project. And there is so much space in this city to build affordable housing. I'm a renter. I want there to be more rental units. I want there to be more homes we can buy. We need more housing. But where we put it really matters. And some of the details about this project are really important. This project abuts the county's school for kids with autism. 600 kids with autism are serviced at the school next door. It's in the middle of a tiny neighborhood with narrow streets, an Orthodox Jewish community that walks to the Chabad every Sabbath at the end of the block. This is a quiet neighborhood. It is the worst place to put this kind of project. But it's not just the project, it's the process that matters. I've met with the surrounding community, and they tell me they found out about this project, not from the city council office, but when the LA Times called them asking for comments. I cannot imagine a more jarring way to find out your neighborhood changes forever. And I've also taken a tour of the help group, the school right next door. And when I took that tour back in November, I asked them, has the council member met with you? And they told me that she hasn't. This is the kind of disconnect from the community that really matters. And one other thing, I think it is interesting that the council member references the only reason she's supporting this is because she wants to follow the rules. And once the rules are set, we have to follow them. But not too long ago, there was a project that I disagreed with too. I didn't like it either. The Bulgari Hotel. It was following the rules. It was following the process. And my opponent and a bunch of other council members, because it became politically unpopular, pulled the authority mid-project.
This was the one in Benedict Canyon?
Yes. And I don't like the project either, but they were following the rules and they had their permission pulled for political reasons.
Did you want to respond to that?
I feel like I've been fairly consistent in how I've approached planning issues in the city and in the district. These are the things that I have really been pushing for my entire time here. And I understand it's frustrating. I will just say that I think on land use issues, that's why my pledge on not taking corporate donations, not taking real estate donations is really important. The developer behind that project on Ethel is actually funding a PAC to support my opponent. And I think these kinds of voices have an outsized influence in policymaking here in Los Angeles. That's why I think we shouldn't be deciding on it in this intense political environment. We should be deciding on it when we make the rules, and then we step away and we do our job.
So I have a follow-up question. As president of Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association, I've been a resident of Sherman Oaks for 64 of the 65 years. I'm 65 years old. In my life, we have never had a 7-story building built in Sherman Oaks. This is the first that we've had in Sherman Oaks, 7 stories. It's in a residential neighborhood. So I agree that there should be more affordable housing, as I also agree that there should be more housing for homeless. So is this something that you are going to push further as far as if it's affordable? The Encino Property Owners Association, you made a statement that this particular developer originally came to you with a 2-story market rate.
Not this one, a different project, wasn't this one.
But you were excited on this one. No, your quote was that you were excited on this one because he was going to do a market rate at 2 stories, and then he said 7 stories affordable you were all for. No?
I said that there was another project in our district, which initially came in, I didn't say anything about the height, came in as a market rate project, a separate project, and then came in later, resubmitted under ED1 as 100% affordable project.
So going forward, this one got under the wire because of the executive order. So going forward though, does this homeowner association, these 400 folks that are on the Zoom call, 200 folks in this room, do we have both of your guys' commitment that you are going to preserve single family neighborhoods, or you're looking to go into single family neighborhoods or additional to increase housing? Yes, no?
I'm not.
Yes, no?
I want to preserve single family homes.
Thank you. Thank you.
On this particular project?
Not on this particular project, going forward. On a go forward, let's put this project aside. Will you make a commitment right now to protect single family residents and not put up zoning in single family R zone neighborhoods?
We are under a state mandated replanning process. Hold on one second. Let me finish. We are under a state planning process. As long as we can meet the regulations of that state process and still preserve these neighborhoods, I am 100% fine with it. I just want to follow the law. That's all. Okay. If we don't follow the law, all of our state funding dries up, all of our resources dry up, all of our infrastructure resources dry up. So far, what the planning department has said is that we can do that through our new rezoning plan, that we can do this. And I'm fully supportive of that. Okay. That's all.
Okay, Nithya, okay.
Do we want more on this, or do we want to move on? What do you?
Let me just do one more follow-up, because I'm sorry, because Jeff Calvin and a whole bunch of folks in the community work with your department. You know that the program that they presented to your office works. You know that there's nothing. Excuse me. The planning department is excited on Jeff's plan. He's been working with the planning department, the city. Jeff's plan is to put the additional housing in transportation corridors, Ventura Boulevard, Sepulveda, Woodman. Jeff went to you and asked for the support. Encino property owners went to you and asked for the support. You would not give it. You said that it's up to the planning department, which is not true. You also said that, so as far as if we understand the state mandate, that's 8 years away. We're talking about preserving single family homes. His plan, the community plan, works as long as the council members behind it.
Okay, so what I said to them was, as long as it meets the state's regulations, I will support it, and it does. And this, by the way, this density along our major boulevards and thoroughfares is exactly what I've been talking about for years. What I am not here to do is to sit here and say platitudes and to say, yes, I'll support this, I'll definitely support that, when I understand very well the environment that we're operating in right now. We have already had state regulation. We know we already have rules from the state, SB 9 and others, that have eliminated single family zoning for the most part. This is because we, as a city, did not speak honestly with our constituents, did not say to people, this is what we're gonna have to do in order to address our housing crisis. We did not say to people, guess what? The state is asking us to do these things. Here's the steps that we're going to have to take, and it's going to require some measure of change in your neighborhoods to get there. We were never honest with people. All we had was people who said yes to anything. And now we have new regulations that limit your power to shape your own neighborhoods. What I'm saying is a different thing. I'm going to be honest with you about the regulations that we're facing, and I will fight like hell to get to a version of this plan that preserves what we love about Los Angeles and still allows us to meet our goals.
All right. This is why you say that land use is the single biggest issue we're facing.
Single biggest issue.
So Ethan, you mentioned you're a renter. So isn't the American dream home ownership, but isn't it a reality that you're pretty young? You probably can't afford a home where you'd like to live. What do you do about that?
Yeah, that is a great question, because I would love to be a homeowner someday. But for me and most of the people in my generation, that's just not going to be an option. And so this is where providing new housing is really important. And this is where Jeff and Maria's plan is so powerful. The plan that we've been talking about is a plan that this community developed to meet our state mandated requirements by upzoning the high traffic corridors of Ventura and Van Nuys. And their plan also designs not just for apartments, but for condos to be built. Starter homes for people like me that are never going to be able to put down, the $1 million it takes to buy a single family home. And that's the kind of
well, you don't have to put down $1 million.
Well, you don't have to. Depending on the
real
estate.
estate.
You're right. I don't own a house.
But you have to put down
Right.
a significant
10%,
amount of.
Yeah. But that is the kind of forward thinking we need, because if we just bifurcate our world and say there's going to be apartments and very expensive single family homes, my generation is out of luck. And so that is one of the reasons I am a shameless supporter of Jeff and Maria's plan. It works. And the other thing you need to understand is the clock is ticking. This plan is going to be finalized by the planning department in the next year, likely, and it needs political support. Even the mayor has described this plan as the gold standard of community engagement around zoning and housing. And we need a leader that will fight for this community, especially when this community comes with solutions. That's what leadership is.
But can you explain how that helps you buy a house or a condo?
Because we need to have entry points to start building equity. Because if the start,
but I mean, they're going to be lower prices, what you're saying?
Yeah, condos don't cost the same as a single family home with a backyard and a fence. And so if we can have condos that cost $700,000 or $800,000, $500,000 instead of the 1.4 million that a house costs, that allows people like me to start building equity and start entering the middle class and having stability.
All right, different subject question. This might be tough in 2 minutes, but this is on the November ballot, I believe, thinking ahead. What is the Taxpayer Protection Act that you come out against, I believe, that may not be on people's radar, but it's going to be one of those very controversial issues. Can you take like a minute to explain what the Taxpayer Protection Act is and what your opposition is to it?
So it is an act that is a ballot measure that was put on the ballot by collecting signatures. And it essentially says that in order to pass a new tax, and local governments here in the state of California have relatively few sources of revenue. And we, in order to find some of these additional revenues, this is not unique to Los Angeles, this is every city across California, have passed things like sales taxes like Measure H, which we all voted for, which provides hundreds of millions of dollars for homeless services, or other kinds of transfer taxes in order to fund things that our regular budgets aren't able to fund. What this Taxpayer Protection Act says is that in order to pass those taxes, you would have to get over 2/3 of the vote in order to pass them.
Well,
As opposed to
from
residents.
Okay.
Yes.
So it makes it harder,
now
it makes it harder to raise new taxes.
Yes. So like Measure ULA,
So why is
Measure
that?
B.
So why do you oppose that idea?
So we've actually generated new sources of revenue for things that our county and city government haven't been able to fund, like homeless services, or like building new homeless housing. Any of the progress that we've been able to make on these issues has really come about.
Does not require 2/3.
Has not required 2/3 and has come from these transfer taxes, which are usually like a small increase to your sales tax or something like that. And for me, that preserving that ability to have it happen through a 51% vote rather than a 66% vote is, I think it's important. Otherwise, we will continue. I said the big difference, for example, on the issue of homelessness is that we don't have enough shelter beds, right? Shelter beds are entirely funded at the local level. The federal government doesn't fund it. We will not be able to get people off the streets even in the short term, if we can't find funding for additional shelter through these kinds of efforts. And I think it really limits our capacity to act on the very big problems that we have, given the constraints that we face at the local level.
Have you spent any time looking at this issue?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a feeling you might have a different viewpoint.
Yeah, I'm going to say something controversial right now. Your taxes are too damn high. And it is so frustrating to me because for so many politicians, the answer to all of our problems is give us more money. And when I look at our city budget's never been higher. Our county budget's never been higher. Our state budget's never been higher. And to look at that situation and say, you know what the problem is? We need more money, I think is outrageous. Yeah. And I make a commitment to you. I will never ask you to raise your taxes unless I can look you in the eye and tell you honestly, our city is spending your money well. And I'm not holding my breath for that day to ever come.
So speaking of spending money, we have representatives from the LAPD here. Matt mentioned at the beginning, we're down maybe 1,000 officers. You both support expanding the LAPD? And then how do we pay for it though? Since to your point, we might need to ask for more money. So why don't you take the lead on that one? I mean, how do you expand the LAPD?
Sure. So Mayor Bass has already provided the resources for it. She provided it in her budget, and she provided for pay raises so that officers for LAPD are paid the same amount as surrounding jurisdictions. It was a critical piece in retaining officers and attracting officers. And my opponent voted against that pay increase. Yep. So that is a first important piece. But another important—
So that's an example of spending the city's money wisely.
It's a necessary, like we don't have a choice. Public safety, if the city has a fundamentals of a city is they must provide public safety and infrastructure. Everything on top of that is just gravy. And if we fail at public safety and infrastructure, we fail as a city. And right now we are failing on both.
So could you explain your vote on the package of pay raises and bonuses of recruiting and retention?
I wanted to say that I work very closely with our PD, including Captain Vargas and many others. I have immense respect for our PD partners and work closely with them across all of the divisions that cover our district. And I believe in pay raises for city employees. Inflation has been through the roof. The rent is too damn high. Everyone deserves a pay raise. I thought this pay raise was designed to increase retention and to increase recruitment. And it was very, very high, very high. And I thought that the size of the raise would be so much that it would create significant budget deficits going forward. It would cut into other essential services that we were providing that I hear from you every day are not being provided fast enough or well enough, and that it would actually not address issues related to recruitment and retention. And I will say so far, the data has proven me correct. We have a $250 million budget deficit, according to our last financial status report, that we're gonna have to figure out how to work around. That means cuts to basic services for residents. And the second thing is that our last recruitment class is one of the smallest it's ever been for LAPD. It was just 22 people. So on both fronts, this raise seems to have not done what it was supposed to do. Again, I believe in raises for all of our city employees. I just didn't think this one was fiscally prudent, and I want to make sure that we're spending your money appropriately.
So is this an example of the job that sometimes you have to make decisions that might seem unpopular?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part. You cannot go around telling people what they want to hear at all times. You have to tell people the truth. We're facing really tough challenges in Los Angeles right now. There is no way that we will get through this with dishonesty. We will have to grapple with real decisions that change our neighborhoods, that force us with two bad choices to pick one and then justify that one. And the commitment I've made to you, and I said this the last time when I was here with you, Phil, in 2019 when we did this, or 2020, March of 2020. You may not always like what I have to say, but I'm always going to be honest with you. And that's a commitment I've stuck to since I've been in office.
Has that been hard?
Yes. Very hard.
Is coming here tonight hard?
No, I mean, I like interacting with constituents, so I always enjoy the opportunity, and I think you're great. So
Well, no, I
yeah.
appreciate that.
So no,
I mean, hard in the sense that you know that this is sometimes a crowd that is not voted for you, as I said earlier. So you feel like you have to prove your worth somehow.
I think I have to prove my worth to everybody. I have to prove it to the people who didn't vote for me to show them that I can really deliver on the things I talked about. And I have to prove it to the people who voted for me that I delivered on the things that I talked about. So it's for everybody. But I will say that, for me, it's only hard because the challenges that are facing Los Angeles are hard. And I really hate disappointing people. I hate telling people that they can't have what they want. What you're asking for is so reasonable, but there's 50 different constraints that we're facing in the city. And it's my job to tell you about those constraints and to make sure you understand the context in which we're working in, and to make sure that you know that we're working as hard as possible to solve those problems. Like, I feel that urgency to solve those problems. Sometimes it's very, very tough. And I just want to be real with people about that.
So Ethan, she just said a lot. Any reaction?
One of the things that stands out to me is the issue about law enforcement. So I worked in a police station for 5 years. I know LAPD very intimately. I've seen LAPD at its best and at its worst. And when I talk to officers and ask why they don't want to work here in Los Angeles, they give 2 reasons. One was the pay, that has been addressed now. But the other one is they say, Ethan, why would we put our necks on the line? Why would we put ourselves in difficult situations when our elected leaders are just waiting for the opportunity to throw us under the bus? And that morale issue is real. I've seen it in stations. I've seen stations where I've worked in a station where our city council members showed up in roll call training. They showed up at events. They showed up at the captain's office. They got lunch with the captain. They gave officers support in the tricky things that they have to do. I mean, a great example is homeless encampments around schools. When I was a neighborhood prosecutor, I would talk to school administrators who would say, Ethan, we're finding needles on our playgrounds and men are doing lewd acts right outside of our gates. And what are you going to do about it? And the solution was 4118, a rule that prohibits encampments around schools. It's an absolutely necessary tool. And the issue, though, is to do that kind of enforcement, LAPD needs to be supported by case managers, outreach workers, sanitation workers to do it right. Because right now, because of zero bail, it's just a ticket that you get for that. We need to integrate our approach. And if you don't have the partnership with the city council office, those laws cannot be enforced. And right now, as I see it, LAPD does not have that partnership and those laws are not being enforced. And then our officers have to come into rooms like this and be grilled. Why aren't you guys doing anything? Why aren't you guys doing anything? And they don't want to throw the electeds under the bus, but there's a reason they're not doing anything. It's because their hands are tied, and that devastates morale.
Hands are tied by who?
By a lack of support and cooperation from the city council office. A great example. LAPD cannot touch a tent. They cannot touch a tent. They need a sanitation worker. If they cannot touch any of the garbage, they need a sanitation worker. And when they're doing
But hasn't that been part due to court rulings and lawsuits? It's not just a policy that the city arbitrarily instituted.
Correct.
Yeah, it is. But that is why the partnership is necessary. And if you don't have partnership with your city council office that directs those resources, you cannot enforce those rules. And it goes back to my point earlier. We need to start enforcing rules in this city. And when you look, have you ever driven around Burbank or Beverly Hills and wondered why they look so different than us?
Because they're not under court orders.
No, but that's
the reason.
Well, a lot of the court orders are Ninth Circuit. There are some settlements that affect us. I
understand your point.
But there are issues like 4118 and 4. So a great example is we have a rule on the books that requires people to collapse their tents during the day. It helps.
Not enforced.
It's not enforced. Right. No, absolutely not.
And that's because the mayor said don't enforce it?
It's partially because we don't have enough officers to enforce.
But
Yeah. But understand,
no police officer wants that job.
Well,
that's not what they're there for.
I mean, you're partially right. But when I worked Hollywood, I worked with a team called the Core Team. They were 8 officers who just worked with the homeless community every single day. They built relationships with the homeless community. They knew 80% of the homeless in Hollywood by name. And there's a lot of homeless in Hollywood. And they were able to identify the drug dealers and arrest them, identify people with warrants and arrest them, and connect.
So did those officers have the support of the council member?
Back in the day, they did. But that unit was ultimately defunded, and it doesn't exist anymore.
All right.
And so if we want to start getting this problem under control better, we need to start investing in these kinds of resources where we can manage the problem better day over day.
So Nithya, you've said that 4118 is just simply moving people around, which is one of the reasons that you do not support that. Is that accurate?
Parts of, I mean, it's a complicated law. It has, there's pieces of it that say there's no camping in parks, that you have to have ADA access on sidewalks. You have to have a certain distance from drive, but I'm saying it's multi-part.
I mean, it has.
Yeah,
yes.
So there are certain parts of it that
schools,
I support. But there's certain parts of it that I support, and then there's certain parts of it that I've had more trouble with, which are the new parts, which are saying you put up a zone in one place so that you can get rid of some tents there, and then
just move down
they just move. Yeah, they move 500 feet away.
Point was that the feeling that some officers have, and I don't want to speak for you, but that they're not. You don't have their back. So they're not going to put themselves on the line. I mean, I've seen it 1,000 times, officers going the extra mile with homeless people. Did you ever, this is not your district, but someone built like an 8x8 wooden structure on Hollywood Boulevard, just east of the freeway. It was there for like a year. It had landscaping, power, it was just there. And it wasn't a residential area. It was by the Harbor Freight. You guys know where I'm talking about? And the council person for that district,
And
that was last year. Just so in other words, and the LAPD was well aware of it. And under 4118, they could have taken action because it blocked an entrance to a building. And they didn't. So anyway, the point is what you were saying is that the sense that the police don't have the backing of electeds. And that's your view. And I don't know that you would agree with that.
I mean, I think, look, we work very closely with all of our divisions. We work with them on individual encampments. We work with them on issues related to homelessness all the time. And I feel like the way in which we have operated is sometimes the police have their tools, which are, investigations that can lead to arrests for drug sales. But often what I have been told is that housing somebody is a faster way of getting them off the street than waiting for an investigation to be completed and for us to go through a court process. And that these two things happen in parallel. And we communicate about safety issues that happen. We communicate about RVs that are problematic. We communicate about tents that are problematic. And we work in partnership with one another to address issues using what they can provide to address real violence and criminal activity. And then
we're just talking to generalities. We're just talking to generalities here.
Can I ask a specific question?
I understand what you're saying, but this is why people often just use that term, oh, it's a complex issue.
Well, I'm not saying it's complex. I'm saying we work together. There's certain things that we can do that's faster than what they can do. I don't think it's about
one or the other.
Yeah, exactly.
May I ask a specific question? I'm wondering if you support 4118 around schools and daycares.
Already voted against it, because it doesn't work. I mean, it's like, I don't think a kid's going to be safer because a tent is 500 feet away from a school. It's like, whatever. It just doesn't.
So I have a question. So some of these questions are about vacant schools because enrollments are declining, vacant buildings that the city owns, the county owns. You are now Nithya czar of CD4 4 years. You can do whatever you want. You are Ethan Weaver, czar king of Sherman Oaks. You can do whatever you want. Give us a 2 minutes. Give us a 4-year plan, master plan, what you can do to take care of homelessness, because the number one concerns for the residents of Sherman Oaks is homelessness and crime. And that goes hand in hand in a lot of cases. So give us a 4-year plan. Don't give us an 8-year plan. Give us the plan that if you could do anything that you wanted to do, and you've got money, you've got billions of dollars that are in your coffer every single year. So when we start with Ethan, 2 minutes, your master plan.
Great. So first thing that I would do I would implement the Calvin's zoning plan for the valley. I would concentrate all of our new development on the high traffic corridors of Ventura and Van Nuys Boulevard, and protect our single family homes as much as I possibly can. The next thing I would do to support LAPDs, many of you are familiar with the Senior Lead Program. It's an officer that is assigned to your geographic community to get to know neighbors and solve problems on the ground. I believe we should have a senior lead officer for homelessness. There should be an officer who gets to know the homeless community, can start rebuilding this competence of being able to identify the good guys and the bad guys, and connecting the good guys to services and arresting the bad guys. I also believe we need to invest in more sanitation resources so we can clean up the garbage and filth that's on our streets and prevent the problems from getting out of control. I also believe that we need to start massively cutting the red tape that is strangling our small business community. I know countless small businesses in the Valley that are on the verge of collapse, and they are policy-created problems. They are problems of a city hall that is just looking at our small business community as an opportunity to squeeze more money out of people without providing them the support they need to thrive. And we've become a city where you have to be rich to start a small business, and that is not the American dream. And then I need to begin the long processes that we have to start tackling to get our city out of this mess. We need to radically reform our homeless industrial complex and hold it accountable. We need to make our money actually work, and that is going to be an ugly, difficult, bureaucratic fight, but it's a fight we need to start today. And the last thing is talk to anyone who is building in the city, and they'll tell you that this is a city that is impossible to build in. And it's not because of community, it's not because of neighborhood councils, it's because of a bureaucracy that is designed to fail. That is so filled with red tape that it takes between 3 and 5 years for someone who wants to build housing to break ground after they buy the property. It's not sustainable, and we're not going to be able to get out of this mess until we actually fix the machinery.
Isn't that an argument for the mayor's executive directive then?
No, because what the mayor's executive directive did was it cut communities out of the process, which I think is absolutely wrong. And it was indiscriminate with where the housing goes. And the whole idea, the whole concept of urban planning is that we look into the future and say, what do we want our city to look like in 20 years? And then how do we design around that? And I don't believe that just opening the floodgates and allowing us to scatter housing across our city, scatter apartments like monopoly pieces across the board, is going to get us out of this mess or design a better Los Angeles.
Since you're an urban planner, did he accurately describe urban planning?
Not my understanding of it, but that's all right. And I do think what you're saying is right. I mean, what EB1 did was to eliminate red tape. It eliminated some of the processes that we have in place. And so I think it will be very hard to do what Ethan is claiming to do, which is to keep community involved and to eliminate red tape. That kind of engagement is part of the tape that has slowed down housing, that has really left us in the situation that we're in right now. So what
Matt,
I guess what I would say is what you need to be doing is to really, really focus on what has worked over the last few years, take those lessons and implement them widely. On homelessness, we see that increasing access to shelter works to take encampments off the streets. You see it through Inside Safe across the entire city. You saw it in Council District 4, at places like Coldwater 101, at Van Nuys 101, at the Studio City Park and Ride near your house, the Hollywood Bowl Park and Ride, where when you offer shelter to people, entire encampments disappear. But we don't have enough shelter here in Los Angeles. We need desperately to expand shelter, something I'm working on right now with the mayor to ensure that this effective approach is taken citywide. On affordable housing, right now we have a planning system that incentivizes the creation of the most expensive housing in America. That's what we've set up. For the first time, we've made changes to that through new state regulations coming in and through new executive directives and planning changes where we're actually incentivizing affordable housing to be built. Everybody agrees we need more affordable housing. We need to build on those successes, expand on them, and really build the kind of housing that young people can move into, that people who are coming to Los Angeles for the first time can move into. People like my husband who came here trying to be a writer, it was cheap housing that allowed him to come here and to do that. So I think really building on the lessons that we're learning and ensuring that we're spending every dollar appropriately as we move forward is the way forward.
All right, we're getting close to the finish line. I know it's late. We're called this one the lightning round. Yes or no questions, if possible. I know it's not in the nature necessarily for yes or no questions, but we've already touched on this, but just to clarify. So do you support the effort to build affordable apartment buildings in single family neighborhoods?
Yes. Going forward, that's not what's happening.
Going forward.
So I support what's happening right now, which is ED1 without single family neighborhoods. I'm fully in support. That's it.
Okay.
Ask it one more time so I know.
Do you support efforts to change ED1, which has been changed already, and again allow building affordable apartment buildings in single family neighborhoods?
No.
That would be it. Okay. Do you support reinstating section 8502 of the LA Municipal Code, which probably don't know what that number means, but it says that no person can use a vehicle or an RV as a dwelling on city streets?
It says, I know 8502 because I've worked on it before. It prohibited sleeping in using vehicles as dwellings in residential neighborhoods, okay. And I do approve of that.
Nithya?
I don't know what 8502 is, or because it was before my time, it was already off the books.
It said that no person can use a vehicle or an RV as a dwelling on city streets.
In certain places, I think in our housing crisis, I would be loath to ban it completely, but in certain places, exactly like 4118 is structured right now, I think it's fine to have some ban.
All right. Do you support an independent city council redistricting?
Yes, and it's my effort that it's going to be on the November 2024 ballot.
Yes.
Yes. And expanding the city council?
Yes.
Yes. I'm not sure about that.
So it depends on how we do it, because if we do it wrong, it'll make the problems worse. So understand, we have a weak mayor and a strong city council office. And your city council member is effectively the mayor of your council district.
Right.
And they have, like the councilwoman said, they have incredible control over everything from land use on down. And if all we do is multiply the number of city council members without changing that power structure, we're simply multiplying the objects of corruption, and we're going to further divide the attention of our city agencies. So I would support it if we change the power structure, but that's not on the table.
But that is actually what is going to be on the table. There's a whole charter reform commission that we're going to be discussing. So this is part of a number of changes, including changes in how decisions are made so that we can make faster decisions, so that we can hold departments accountable better. That's a huge problem. We don't have that right now with our fragmented system.
Because each city council person, I believe, is 260,000 constituents, which is larger than a lot of cities.
Council District 4 goes from Reseda to Northern Silver Lake. It's so big, you know, and it's so many different neighborhoods, and I'd love to have smaller ones, but you can change it so that it works better.
All right, we haven't touched on this, but this is an important issue. Do you support the re-election of George Gascon as district attorney?
Absolutely not.
Nithya?
I have not endorsed him in this cycle.
So that's a no. Do you support public financing of LA's elections and limiting contributions by individuals?
I support public financing of elections overall. I think it's cleaner government.
Yeah, I think I would support. It depends on the plan, but I think I, in general, support that.
Or we haven't talked about this, but this is an interesting issue too. There's a proposal to use land at the city-owned Palmdale Airport to build housing for the homeless. Sound good? Yes, no, maybe?
I mean,
it's out there. It's far away.
I'm open to housing wherever, but I don't think the city of Palmdale would be down with that. I think they would probably be like, solve your problems yourself, but yes, very open to building housing wherever.
Yes, I'm open to that.
All right, there's a huge bike lane proposed by the Sepulveda Basin. It's requiring some reconfiguring of the property there. Do you support that plan?
Yeah, it's one that I'm somewhat familiar with, but it's not part of the district, and so I haven't gotten really in the weeds with it.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't have a strong position.
Broadly supportive.
And then are you familiar with the affordable housing linkage fee, which was enacted by the city council, I think a few years ago, before your term? Do you support that idea? It's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah, it's an additional fee that is attached to new development. It's not one
a lot of people talk about.
Yeah, it's not one that a lot of people talk about, and I don't like the principle of just adding more and more costs to building housing. I appreciate that it's a stable supply of money, but it bothers me that our solution to every problem is make it more expensive.
Mm.
Honestly, it's not the best designed thing.
All right.
It incentivizes new housing, unfortunately.
All right, I just have one additional question, and then we're going to give you a few minutes for closing statements. I'll start with Ethan. What elected official or political figure do you most admire? Locally, nationally, statewide?
I mean, I gotta say, at a national level, I mean, who doesn't love Barack Obama? I mean, what an inspirational leader. And at a local level, I think we have some really tremendously strong leaders in this city. I look at people like Tracy Park and Monica Rodriguez that are really fighting hard for their communities. But unfortunately, there just aren't a lot of great city leaders to look to, in my opinion. What other leaders?
Oh, those are good. Those are good answers. Nithya, who would you say an elected official is that you most admire? Perhaps model yourself after, or you've learned from.
I've really admired locally. I've really admired Mayor Bass. I think she's brought real energy to City Hall. She's brought urgency to homelessness. And I think she's real with people and she builds coalitions. All of these are what's going to be essential. So I really like her and I'm delighted to have her support in this race.
All right, thank you very much. Matt?
Don't forget the close.
Who do you admire as far as the best homeowner association group in Los Angeles? So, but before your closing statements, let's hear it for Phil Schuman. Awesome job. Thank you so much. Asked some great questions. Look, a lot of you guys asked questions that we didn't get to, and I apologize, but we have a full room here. We have over 400 people on the Zoom call tonight. We have all you guys, so thank you guys for coming, and definitely vote. We are going to have closing statements, but before you sneak out of the room, please take your garbage and please leave fairly quickly. If you want to stick around and talk to the different candidates, that's fine. Do it on some of the sides of the room because we have to clean up this room. Otherwise, we get charged an overcharge. So who's going to start? Who started on the opening? Okay, so you want to start on the closing or you flip the coin?
Sure.
You got it?
Got it. Well, thank you all so much for being here tonight. It's so cool to be in a room like this because this is democracy in action. So thank you so much. I hope one thing has become very clear tonight about who I am and where I stand. I come from the perspective of community first. I came up through the city working with community. I solved problems for my community in rooms like this with community members just like you by listening, taking action, and solving problems. And that's what I want to do as your next city council member. I look at our city and I see the deep dysfunction. And I see a city that is increasingly hostile to people like you, a city that ignores legitimate community concerns, a city that doesn't return calls and emails, that is impenetrable. And as your next city council member, I promise to do the exact opposite. Something that really matters to me, and this is a commitment I give to you, not just the members of SOHA, but to the whole valley. It is critical that you have a city council member that is accessible in your community. And as your next city council member, I commit to having regular office hours in the Valley office with me personally, so you, the members of the public, can access me. I also promise to have a planning deputy and director that is accessible to you on all of the most important sensitive issues of housing that affect your community. They will be sent to your plum meetings. They will be sent to your community meetings. They will be accessible to you because it is critical that my office understand how what City Hall is doing impacts you. And ultimately, it is about bringing your voices from rooms like this into City Hall. And that's why I'm running. And I'm also running to solve the problems that you most experience on the ground every day. That's what I did as a neighborhood prosecutor. And that's the perspective I will bring as your next city council member. It is a community first approach. And I truly believe that our city became this dysfunctional when it lost touch with communities like yours. And it lost its connection and its access to communities like yours. And as your next city council member, I promise to turn this ship around. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for having me tonight, for inviting me to this forum. It was really fun when I did it in 2020, and it was really fun tonight. It was a pleasure to get to know you better, Ethan, through this, and to hang out with all of you tonight. You know, the things that I talked about when you asked about my values are really what I bring to the table every day in my job in City Hall. There is nothing about the challenges that we're facing right now as a city that are easy, that can be solved with sound bites or with single word answers. Unfortunately, we are in a very tough spot right now. And the commitment that I make to you is the same one that I made last time. I promise to bring my very, very hardest working self to the table every single day. I promise to make sure that we are taking on the challenges that this district is facing with the urgency that they deserve. I promise to continue the progress that we've already made on addressing homelessness in our district, the visible changes that we've seen under underpasses, on our streets. We've made progress in this district while other districts have gone backwards. There's a reason for that. It's because our office and our team has brought its full self to the table every single day. It's because we work this hard to deliver results that we've actually seen results. And I think for me, this is why I'm really delighted to have the support of so many other elected officials who've worked with me, who know what I bring to the table, and the support of many, many trusted neighborhood organizations and leaders. So thank you again. I'm really, really excited to have spent this evening with you and look forward, hopefully, to be working with you for another 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you, everybody. You guys are sticking around for a little bit to answer questions. She's going to be wearing a mask, but thank you. And you guys, if you want, we record this, so it's on our website if you want to tell your friends. Thank you very much.